This kid turned his territory into a full-on tower defense game. What started as a barren little village got a major upgrade. He whipped up a tall concrete wall all around it, complete with battlements and watchtowers. And get this, he packed it with over 100 crossbow turrets, all conjured up in just one day using his so-called useless production magic. Truth be told, with Van's near-limitless mana, he could have cranked out way more. But the village only had about 100 folks, so extra gear would have just sat around and used. Even at this scale, though, it was basically a military fortress now. Before beefing up the defenses, Van focused on improving life for the villagers. After all, he'd already magicked himself a swanky mansion, letting everyone else stick with their rundown shacks just didn't sit right. So he rolled up his sleeves and renovated every house in the village. He even laid them out in a modern grid pattern, making future expansions a breeze. Of course, he didn't forget to squeeze in a big bathhouse for some RNR. He'd been busting his hump for days and deserved a soak. Little did he know, the neighboring earl's young daughter and her escort were already en route to deliver her as his bride. After waking up, Van got back to business, fixing the village's water supply. With his butler Espada's earth magic, they dug a long canal in no time. Dai and his crew followed behind, fine-tuning the spots the magic couldn't quite reach. Finally, Van reinforced the ground and walls with his production magic. In less than a day, they had a canal linking up to the lake. When Van gave the signal to open the gates, crystal clear lake water rushed in. Under the villagers' eager eyes, it flowed for dozens of kilometers and filled the moat around the walls. But Van wasn't one to pat himself on the back yet. He thought ahead to rainy seasons and rising water levels, so he added a reservoir outside the village. The villagers were beyond grateful, their basic survival needs were sorted. With that out of the way, Van turned his mind to making money. Those weapons he'd produced earlier were a prime pick. Sure, they were made from plain old wood, but one swipe could slice right through an adventurer's sturdy shield. Sell them, and the cash would roll in. Still, he didn't want the territory relying solely on him. The villagers needed ways to sustain themselves, so he brainstormed ideas where they could pitch in. Right on cue, Ort rolled back with a cart full of ores, not just copper and iron, but gold, silver, and even a bit of crystal. Van was thrilled and couldn't wait to test his production magic on them. He quickly whipped up an iron ingot. To make up for busting Kuzara's shield, he agreed to craft him a short sword and a long one. Since it was his first time using metal with the magic, Van paid close attention to how it differed from wood. He meticulously pictured every detail of the short sword in his mind, and soon enough, he had a beautifully crafted piece. Then he repeated the process for a sleek, stylish long sword. Kuzara was over the moon, but the other adventurers got jealous and begged Van to hook them up too. It was no big deal for him, so he whipped up weapons for everyone. Meanwhile, the butler eyed the mithril ore with a serious look, warning that a new dungeon might have popped up nearby. Dungeons are like endless treasure troves of resources. If Van's marquis father caught wind of it, he'd send someone else to take over. So Van decided to hold off on exploring until he'd gotten the village on its feet. He turned this tiny spot into a fortress that could fend off bandits or monsters. No one was getting through without being turned into Swiss cheese by those crossbows. Just then, a villager reported a huge swarm of armored drakes heading their way. For the villagers, it was a do-or-die crisis. These things could wipe out a whole city. But for Van, it was a golden opportunity. His 100 crossbows were itching for action.